Hello and welcome to the Retro Rejects. This week we have a very spooky episode with the spookiest album of all time. Garrett Brooks' Raining Blood. So yeah, quite obviously we're not talking about Garrett Brooks, although that's pretty scary in itself.
It is a scary prospect, yeah.
Yeah, anyone from Ireland, did he end up doing like
he did
a
like
million gigs?
5,000 gigs or something like that, all one after the other up in Croke Park.
There was a thing, wasn't it, years ago he was going to do, he started off at one gig and it sold out, and then it was going to be 2 gigs, and then he wanted, fuck it, I'll do 5, and they were like, no, we only want you to do 3, and then he was like, fuck it, I'll do none. And he was like, fuck everyone in Ireland. Yeah, and then he came back a couple of years later and everyone was like, oh, he's great.
And half of Ireland went to see him. And that's the thing, that particular stadium is only allowed to host so many music concerts per year, and I think all of their concerts that year were used up by Garth Brooks.
Yeah, well, music concert is debated.
That's a stretch, I suppose, yeah.
Isn't it?
Sure.
Isn't it? But yeah, Slayer.
Yeah.
So what does Slayer mean to you?
Fucking Slayer!
I think when people...
Yeah, it's just
say Slayer, that's the first thing, isn't it? It's like, Slayer! Like, we were looking at a couple of live shows and stuff, and that's all I do is Slayer!
Yeah, fucking Slayer!
And I don't know where it started. Well, like, I mean, it just seemed to... I don't know, Slayer just always seemed to kind of like have this rabid fan base. I've been Slayer from... Yeah, it would have been the 90s. And it was just like, I remember when, I think it was Divine Intervention, it was Divine Intervention on the inside. The original album cover, I think, was going to be with someone who had Slayer cut into their arm, and I think that ended up being the back cover or maybe part of the inlay card. But I seem to remember around that it started kind of like really turning into this fucking, that the Slayer fan base were like...
mental.
Yeah, that kind
fanatic
of way. Where there was always stuff about like Slayer fans ripping concert halls apart and stuff, but that happened with Guns N' Roses. Although I suppose Guns N' Roses was happening because they pissed off
all their fans.
Yeah. And stuff. But yeah, when would you have discovered Slayer?
I was vaguely aware of him, I suppose, for a long time, but never really got into him, I suppose, because it took me a while to come around to like the kind of metal I would have been into when I was younger, is more like
Prince.
9 Inch Nails. Oh yeah, Prince, of course, yes, he's so metal. But yeah, kind of 9 Inch Nails-y kind of stuff, and I actually started liking thrash kind of like quite late in life, really, I suppose.
Yeah, you are actually, yeah, you were.
I suppose like Slayer would have been... I suppose when I started going out with you, were like constantly playing Rain and Blood as well, so...
was I?
Yeah, you were quite...
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
there was quite a lot of that going on, yeah. You were like, listen to this, now listen to this one as well, and also listen to this, and I was like, all right,
Joseph Mangala.
Yes, exactly. But yes, no, it would have been sort of around that time, and I was like, oh, not so bad. But I wouldn't have been a band that I would have like massively gravitated to until I kind of took a while to get into, and then I was like, yes, I like these, they're quite cool.
Well, the thing with Slayer, I think I was 12 when I got Rain and Blood, and it was only out a very, very short time, maybe a few years beforehand when I came across them, and it was terrifying. And it wasn't just because I remember like seeing people talking about it that were older when it came out, and they were like, it really changed a lot. Like, I mean, you had Venom and there was other bands, like there was a lot of heavy bands around at that stage, but for some reason it was just, I think, the pure aggression and fucking hatred, and there was just it's a violent fucking album. And as well that it was like people were like, I remember people that weren't into metal that were like, it's like this 25-minute long album or this 20-minute album, and they're like, it was nearly like a joke kind of to some, and then they'd listen to it and they were like, wow, the fuck is going on?
There's a lot here.
Yeah, I was listening to actually Alan Averill from Primordial did a podcast a while ago about Rain and Blood. And he was saying on it as well that, like, you could imagine being in a metal band at that stage, and you go out and you pick up Slayer's new album and you listen to Rain and Blood, and you kind of go, we're fucked.
I know. What am I about?
Where do you go from here? Like, how do you top that? Yeah, how do you equal it? You don't, and like, I mean, even I think it's debatable if Slayer ever really actually better But I think they were definitely at their prime. That like I don't think they've done a better album
Possibly since
Rain and Blood. Not that they haven't done good albums.
Yeah.
They've done like excellent albums that are kind of like probably up there with some of the top, but it's just Rain and Blood, I think, will be the album that
they'll probably always be associated most heavily with or remembered for, I suppose. Yeah, kind of Master of Puppets of Metallica or whatever. Like, there's I think every band has their one album that, if you're going to give somebody being introduced to them, you go, this is the one to listen to.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I don't know, like, when we said that we're going to talk about this, I went off to listen to all the albums again, and it was, like, I never really listened to the newer ones, and I have to say, I wasn't overly enamoured. Yeah. They were good, like, but it was just... Even like say 20 years or however long it was after 30 years probably after Rain and Blood, it didn't seem to have the same aggression.
The same power punch to it, yeah.
Yeah, now I don't know if that's like an age thing, which it's going to happen, like, would it, but it's, I suppose there's a lot to be said about the probably naivety that they had at the time, like, to write a song like Angel of Death and not have it in their head with kind of like, this might be controversial.
The wrong way. Exactly, yeah.
Whereas, like, kind of for people who don't know, like, say we would just talk about Rain and Blood, I suppose, for a bit, and then we kind of go into the other bits. But Rain and Blood, it was, I think, their fourth studio album, and they were after signing over to Def Jam at the time.
Yeah, haven't gone from Little Bait, like, which would seem their natural home,
Yeah, whereas Rick Rubin was after going after him and produced the album, and obviously he did like a fantastic fucking job on it. So it's like. It was at the time, I suppose, the album that they did beforehand was slightly slower. And then kind of like this was just blistering fucking speed.
3-minute songs kind of a thing, yeah.
And what you had with some of the, like, I suppose the opening song is called Angel of Death. And like, I presume if you're listening to it, Rain and Blood. But yeah, it's
that scream at the start as well. You have your intro and then it's the fucking
but it's like it's a song about Joseph Mengele called Angel of Death. It's at the time, I think people took it up that was like, oh, they're
glorifying it. Yeah, exactly.
Where you listen to it and it's like it's nearly factual.
Yeah.
So you'd have to be a psychopath to be kind of going, this guy sounds all right. They're obviously singing about how good he is.
Yeah.
There's not like, hey, Joseph Mengele, he's so fine. He knows what in the middle.
Hey, Joseph.
It's just like about the atrocities I did.
Yeah.
Whereas like I think
horrendous low point in human history.
I think Jeff Hanneman was like after getting massive into World War II at that stage. I think he got stuff from his father was a collector of Nazi memorabilia.
So I don't think it was just Nazi memorabilia. Though. It was he was World War II in general.
Yeah, well, no, it was his father was in the war, wasn't it? He brought home medals from the dead German soldiers he was after killing. So it wasn't like he was quite obviously against, like, if his father was out there killing Nazis, and stuff, that's where he was at with it. So it's, that's the big thing with kind of like that, where a lot of that stuff came from around World War II. Yeah, so it's, it wasn't a glorifying album.
No, I mean, his dad fought in a war, basically. And, sort of saw horrible, serious, traumatic things. Like, so it's not like he would have been that far removed for it. Like, say, someone of a younger generation would be, where all they're doing is learning about it in history books. Like, his father had to live to experience that.
Exactly. But it's the rest of the song. Well, not the rest of the songs, but a lot of the songs, I think it goes to show what they were into at the time. So it's serial killers fucking, and I don't know, I suppose a lot of the kind of the scary albums that would have been around, it would have been kind of like, say, Venom, where it's kind of like in league with Satan and all that shit.
Yeah, it's almost hokey kind of thing. Yeah.
This kind of, I think it was, now I'm not an expert on kind of like the start of death metal and stuff, but or say black metal. Like, I know there was like the first wave of black metal bands around and like include Venom and all that. But you have to think that like Slayer was the forerunner for people. Like, when people were going to copy bands, it was going to be Slayer when they would have went from this into death metal and into black metal, because it's like fucking like Piece by Piece or Criminally Insane. And well, I suppose in the other albums as well about Ed Gein and stuff. But it's just that fucking nuts. And now, I mean, some of it's, I don't know, because it's hard to go back, isn't it, and kind of bring a thing. So if what people today would think of it listening to it for the
Slayer
first
in the
time.
history, if you know what I mean, and always that awareness of Slayer.
Yeah, but it was shocking at the time. I remember being absolutely fucking terrified by Altar of Sacrifice. Sitting there listening to it like late at night, and then when it goes, "Welcome to the realm of Satan," I was like, "Oh,
he's behind me."
Yeah, as if like the devil was going to come through the fucking the speakers and take you away, pull you down to hell or something. But and listen to it again, like I wasn't like, "Oh Jesus, I'm scared. I better go in and hide." But I was listening to it when I was walking around with the dog, and I was like, "No, it's still fucking
packs a bit of a punch, doesn't it? Yeah.
There's something. It feels whatever. It just feels evil.
Yeah, get the hairs raised on the back of your neck, kind of thing.
With it, but like I mean that's the whole album, and I think it's because like most albums when they're done, people that do say not everyone, like obviously, but like say 2 or 3 heavy or fast songs, and then you do kind of like a palate cleanser where it'll be a bit slower or whatever, and
have a bit of a break,
then go back into it. That'd be kind of the classic thing. Whereas with Rain and Blood, there's no
slowing down. It's just full speed freight train kind of a thing. Yeah,
which is, I suppose at the time it was a bit different because people did kind of fall into.
Everyone seemed to fall into their pattern. They had their opening song. They always had kind of like either a banger of a closer or a very soft closer. Like you said, they had a couple of. They might even have a ballad or something like that. That no such thing with.
Well, it would have been like, I mean, hair metal would have been dominant at the time as well, so it would have been fairly big, you know. But it's So can you remember the first time that you heard it? Would it, because like it was quite obviously, I think it is a thing when you're younger and you listen to stuff that has more of an impact on you and kind of stays with
I would have been a lot older than you, actually kind of listening to the whole album in its entirety and all the rest. So the first time I heard it, because I wasn't that used to, I suppose, like that level of aggression and that kind of thrashiness and all the rest. I was a bit taken aback. I was like, Jesus, they are fucking angry, aren't they? I was like, wow, a lot of screaming going on there. There's a lot of aggressive guitar playing going on there. And it took a few listens to actually kind of get into it as well, because I was like, Jesus, this is, even for as simple, I suppose, as it is, insofar as it's fast riffs, it's fast drumming, it's screaming, it's, that kind of thing. And it's Kerry King's fucking bananas, like solos and stuff like that, where they're like squiddly squawk all over the place. There's still an awful lot of layers and a lot of depth to it, and a lot of, I know it's one of these albums where you have to listen to it a few times before you start to appreciate all the intricacies and all the rest, And I like those kind of albums. Like years ago, you'd have to sit down, you'd actually have to put effort into listening to an album, and then you'd actually go, fuck, I love this album. This
is, I think, where Slayer kind of gets a bit of the bad state, or people that think about it. I think people who aren't into Slayer, or whenever Slayer being portrayed, because like that thing we were saying about, like, it's always like Slayer, it's like this mindless fan base,
kind of meathead type thing,
where it's just like pure. And like, I mean, I've just seen interviews with people from Slayer since I was a fucking kid. They're intelligent people. The songs, if you're into Slayer and you read the lyrics and you go through, like even like Jesus Saves, they're attacking kind of Christianity, Bible Belt America. There's a lot of things, where they're commentating on society.
Yeah, they're making points. It's not just random, like,
like there's some bits in there to shock, all right, but they're using that to kind of get their point across. Where they're not necessarily, I think, they're not seen as a political band, but like they do have a lot of big political kind of statements that they make in their music.
Absolutely,
but I think unless you're willing to give it a chance and actually fucking
sit down and listen into it. Yeah. And in my case, probably have to read the lyric sheet and stuff like that as well, because my hearing is terrible.
Yeah, like, I mean, with the like Christ Illusion, that album, like, it's quite obviously all about, like, Christianity and the foibles of Christianity.
The foibles.
But, it's, I suppose, there's a recurring theme with, like, Slayer about, like, being anti-Christianity or anti-religion, I suppose. Anti-war. Even though they're writing about war, it's never kind of like
it's not the glorification of it. Yeah, exactly. It's always about the horrors of war. Really, it serves as a kind of a warning rather than like, oh, Jesus, war is awesome. Let's go off and have another one.
Yes,
you just stopped it.
Yeah, but it's I don't know. Like, I mean, could talk about Rain and Blood all day.
Why don't you then?
Well, I couldn't. But it's, I suppose, the thing at the time, it was very, very underground, and like the impact that it did have on fucking future. But I think it would have been obviously not like solely responsible for the creation of black metal and death metal, but it definitely fed into.
It definitely helped quite a lot. Yeah,
because like I think it was 86 when it actually came out. So then you go into like say the 90s when a lot of like say the second wave of black metal stuff, and a lot of the death metal guys would probably be about 10 years ahead of us. So they would have been, teenagers when they would have heard this and starting their first bands. And then, of course, like when you're starting the band at first, when you're younger, you want to emulate the people.
The music that you listen to, the people that you look up to,
And then when you kind of can't really, you can get a close proximity of it, or it sounds a bit like what you're listening to. Because you've listened to it so much, then kind of like it changes slightly. And I think that's what probably happened with some of the death metal. Yeah. And as well, because of the brutal fucking speed. Of it, like if you're trying to play like Slayer. And I think it's one of the things, because a lot of times when you look back at the history of metal, you look at like thrash kind of killed heavy metal, the new wave of heavy metal and speed metal, I think, and then I suppose death metal and black metal kind of like killed thrash, and then kind of new metal killed
Melodeath or
those
whatever,
alternative metal, and and then it's, but like they were all always still around, because like metal is always like an underground thing, but it's, you can see the clear progression from thrash, and they kind of think, because like with a lot of the other thrash bands like Metallica, fucking Testament, Megadeth,
Exodus,
they didn't have Exodus, Anthrax. Anthrax kind of, I think, fed more into the new metal kind of wave, and kind of got into, not just because of the hip hop kind of element, but their sound, I think, is more kind of happier.
It's more party, I think.
Yeah. Whereas Slayer really, like if you fucking...
Yeah, you're not going to throw Slayer on at a party to get everyone, sort of cheered up or anything like that. If you do that, you're expecting people to like smash pint glasses off each other's heads.
Yeah, but like maybe what would have been Metallica's album around that? I suppose Injustice for All would have been around that time. Would it, when
I think Rain of Blood would that have been actually the same year as Master of Puppets.
Well, even with that, like you compared the two of those. Like, I mean, it's two excellent albums, but huge
very, very different.
Rain of Blood is just fucking... insane. And as well, I think production wise, in fairness, like this is the thing with Rick Rubin, it still sounds really, really, really good. You put on the earlier Metallica albums and they're from the 80s straight away, just by
just
kind
have
of
that production value,
quality too. Whereas kind of with Rain, it's just fucking amazing. Of course, I think that kind of went against them with, say, Divine Intervention apparently was like recorded in 3 different studios, and they fucking struggled to try and get the sound the same between the different studios, so the production on that was a bit...
Yeah. Sounds a bit shitty kind of a thing,
A lot of people don't really like that album either, which I don't. I suppose it's no Rain and Blood, but it's good. I think it's more kind of punkier, more kind of hardcore. And this is the thing, Slayer got shit later on in their career as well. They did, I can't remember the name of the album, but it was an album where it was like all covers that they did, bands that they grew up with, or that influenced them. And it was all like hardcore punk bands. And was this what influenced most of the fucking thrash bands at the time? Where people are always like, oh no, it should have been Sabbath and it should have been this, and people are like, oh, they're fucking sellouts, or they're lying, they're trying to put themselves across as being, because punk music was kind of like Green Day and all that was big at the time.
Trying to lay claim to that whole sort of genre.
And I was like, they're fucking not, like they're really, really not. You listen to that, listen to that album again, it's an amazing album, like it's really, really good. Like Slayer with anything really, especially around that time period. Going on, but what the fuck was there was I know I'm jumping all over the place now actually, but Rain and Blood, seminal album,
of course it is,
scary.
Is that the one as well? Exactly, yeah. But is that the one where they weren't entirely happy with the album cover as well? They thought it was
the album cover is amazing on it.
But I think they weren't. They were kind of like, don't really.
Yeah, they thought it was a bit shit. They didn't think I think it was scary enough or something like that. Or it didn't take it about like the record, or well, Rick Rubin I think was this is which it was the right call. Yeah. But there was a load of controversy over because of Angel of Death, and in fairness to fucking Def Jam, that they were like, no, we're putting this out, but I think it was Geffen or whoever it was.
It was Columbia, I think, refused to distribute it, and it was Geffen that eventually had to step in and distribute it because of the whole.
But they wouldn't put the Geffen badge on it. Famously, they wouldn't put the Geffen badge on it because they didn't want to be
the association with it.
Which I'd imagine if you fucking got like a new one, they're proud because like I'd imagine it's a big selling album, like. But at the time as well, because You had all the Tipper Gore and all those fools with trying to get like the parental advisory on things. So you had a certain amount of bands that were really going out of their way not to be kind of like put into those categories. And then you had Slayer that were like
explicit lyrics, explicit contents,
where it was just
advisory,
they didn't give a fuck, and it was the right way. It was like, sure, we're looking at that thing about Venom.
Yeah, that was
and it was so funny where it was one of I think it was Mantis from Venom, I don't know, but he was talking saying, we're being investigated by these people, and like we had this guy that was saying to us,
if you play backwards music, it's like, you know,
are you saying that you're kind of like part of the devil, kind of like, and he was like, you're talking about an album that's called In League with Satan, and the song is
of like Satan on the front from a band called Venom, and all the lyrics are like that. He's like, you don't have to fucking play it backwards.
We're not hiding that. And Slayer were like that as well, and it's like the balls on Slayer. To do, you know, to be like that.
And they always went their own way as regards that, you know, other thrash bands or any other metal bands even at that time, they went a little bit of the ebb and flow, and they were like, nah, we're thrash, that's it, we're always thrash.
They didn't fucking give in. Like, I mean, it was, I can't remember which, I think it might have been Diablos in Musica, or maybe it was Undisputed, where people were really, really turned against them. Or maybe, I can't remember which one it was, but there were like people saying it was probably God Hates Us All, actually. People were saying that they're after jumping on the new metal
bandwagon,
And it's like, it's like, I mean, I think Metallica, when they did Saint Anger, definitely jumped on the new metal bandwagon, like without a shadow of a doubt, or they're like no solos, Slayer fucking didn't at all. I think they were just like, they were out playing with a lot of these younger bands, because this is the thing as well. Metallica, it's a whole thing. It's say a lot of the trash bands and the heavier bands are brought out by the bigger,
like Ozzy and stuff
bands,
like that.
But they never really returned the favor and brought out like the death metal bands or the black metal bands. It was kind of they didn't, like, they just didn't. They kind of. But Slayer did. Slayer always. I think Slayer probably would have been the first bring out Fear Factory, and so you know there was. So Slayer were being, I'd probably, like, I mean, fucking Metallica weren't going to be bringing out Limp Bizkit or Korn. Years later, they were all like, but like at the time, they fucking weren't. They were saying, like the Deftones. Slayer would have toured with a lot of these. So I think they would have been listening to the stuff firsthand every night and kind of going,
exactly. And they kind of, I suppose, sort of, if you're in tune with a lot of musicians and you're surrounded by a lot of musicians that are into that core, so it's, you know, it's going to rub off on you. It's going to take a bit of influence or inspiration, I suppose, from it,
But I quite like Diablos and Musica and Undisputed Attitude and God Hates Us and all of those ones. Christ's Illusion I thought was good as well. It's a World Painted Blood. One I wasn't too keen on, and Repentless as well. I wasn't. It's all right. Like, we were looking at the Repentless movie. Well, it was just the music videos put together into a story about it. And I think there was a comic of it as well. It's quite good, actually.
It's actually kind of an interesting concept and quite cool as well. Well executed, you know, because it's just, you sit down and you listen. You listen to some decent Slayer tracks and you just see people getting killed horribly. There's a morphs into a concert film then, essentially.
And there's a mad cast in it as well. Like, fucking Jorma Taccone is in it. And
I know, so bizarre. And of course, Danny Trejo is always, he turns up and everything like that, doesn't he?
But it's good. And then, like, they finish it off at the concert thing. And it's like Slayer, even before they finished off, they were still a fucking force, like, live.
Oh, Jesus, sure. When they were on their farewell tour, like, half the universe wanted to go and see it. And it was like, why are you thinking of, like, you know, splitting up now and retiring now? It's like, well, go out on a high note rather than, like, you know, still be corpses of 90 or whatever being shuffled out on stage and trying to play thrash with arthritis or whatever.
I saw them at a festival, fucking donkeys, years ago in Ireland. I don't know how often they played Ireland, but I don't think they played, like, a lot. I remember it started when they started playing Rain and Blood, it started pissing. And like, I mean, it was fucking cold, but everyone was just, I don't know, there was just something about Slayer. It is that thing where people, you can understand the Slayer thing when you've seen them live. They just have some kind of weird, magical feel to them. And as well for, like, I mean, they ended up retired, I think, mostly because of Kerry King was fucked. Like, of course, Jeff Hanneman was after dying as well. Paul Bostaph, was he still playing drums with him?
I think he was the final drum player, if you know what I mean.
But he ended up packing it in at one stage because he was fucked up. His elbow was fucked. what's his name? Dave Lombardo was in and out like 3 or 4
Gary
times.
Holt as well, in and out. Yeah.
Well, Gary Holt came in like just to cover for Jeff Hanneman when he died. But that was the thing. Like Jeff Hanneman, for people who don't know, he would have been one of the founders of like the founders that were Tom Araya, Jeff Hanneman, Kerry King, and Dave Lombardo. So they were, I think, the classic Slayer lineup. Then you have Dave Bostoff, and there was another drummer who used Paul Bostoff, and then another drummer who used to fill in.
Yeah,
and then
occasion,
it was like with Jeff Hanneman, he got bitten by a fucking spider and got necrotic skin, wasn't it, from the spider biting his arm? He couldn't really play guitar, and then he died from liver failure.
Yeah, I think it was cirrhosis of the liver or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah,
like about a year later or something like that. So he had an awful end with things.
Fucking shocking,
for him.
Like, I know, yeah.
Yeah, and like I don't think they could have carried on. Well, they did carry on for a good bit after that, but it was like Hanneman was...
He was, kind of a songwriting force and all the rest, so it was like he was part of the creative force, I suppose, with the whole, and it gets slightly unbalanced then, I suppose. Yeah. He was one of the original kind of,
That must have been hard on them, though, as well, because it's like someone that they would have been with from...
Yeah, sure, I mean, like you're touring with him, you're spending every weekend moment with him, you're sleeping on a tour bus with him, or, well, probably in hotels, at that stage and all that, but... You're just spending so much time with someone, and then all of a sudden, it's like a family member, I would imagine.
But I think with Tom Araya, I remember before they announced that they're retiring, you'd see him, and he was just like, "Oh, I'd like to be at home with my grandkids. I kind of miss my kids growing up," and as well, sure, they're all fucked as well. Their necks are all fucked. I think he was after getting like
neck surgery
and stuff, and he was just in pain the whole time on tour. So it's hard touring even for younger people, and you get older.
Let alone anyone over the age of 30, and then when you start getting up into your 40s and towards 50, it's kind of like, wow, this is not entirely fun as we thought it would be when we were 18.
So I kind of admired him for it because the thing is, near the end of their career, everyone was like, oh my god, Slayer are a force, we reckon. But there was a good period where people were like, oh, you don't listen to fucking Slayer, and they were the main criticism was they weren't changing, that they stayed the same. And it's like, in fairness to him, that was like, I think it benefited them in the end.
That was their sound, and that was it. Yeah, that's what they were known for.
Because you listen to Metallica, I'm not slagging Metallica for change.
They've been all over the place,
same with Megadeth. Even a lot of people say, oh, Megadeth, but did you fucking listen to Megadeth albums?
Oh, I know. There's some of them they veered into nearly pop as well, kind of ballady type
like
stuff.
Like Mustaine will fucking try anything, I think, for a few quid.
I think as long as he's getting in the headlines, I think that's all he wants,
Whereas Slayer, they just stuck to their guns. They just did what they wanted to do. And it's like, if you've ever seen a Slayer gig as well, I think what they kind of took pride in, they never said to the audience, go fucking wild or do this or do that. They didn't engage with the audience over it. They just come out, play their fucking songs and fuck off.
Yeah. But the crowds are always wild at Slayer gigs, huge mosh pits and walls.
Well, that's the music spoke for itself. But there was an energy about him as well. Like when you see him all on stage and you compare them off stage.
That's the thing. They're they come across such nicey, kind of chatty, smiley guys off stage and all the rest, and they're very pleasant and well spoken in manner.
I don't think you'd survive as long as they did if you're an asshole. As well with it. The thing is, Kerry King could say some mad shit in interviews years ago.
But he was funny as well at the same point. It might have been said a bit kind of sarcastically, but I don't think it was necessarily malicious. When you're
reading in a magazine as well, you'd be like, oh, Kerry King, just like Dave Mustaine is. But even today, he's because he played with Dave Mustaine for a while ago. And he was like, I don't know how people managed to fucking be in that band. That guy's a lunatic, And they had a phone there for years. They didn't speak. I think it was only when the Big Four thing came around they started speaking again. Because whenever it was, Dave Mustaine is quite obviously a fucking asshole.
Yeah, he just seems hard work to be around. He's hard work even to read an interview off. Because it's just the ramblings of somebody who is the main character kind of a thing.
Well, we're looking at an interview with Kerry King, and he was talking about it, and he was saying, look, he was fine at the fucking start when he was in Metallica, he was fine, and then he was saying he became a fucking character in his own movie because he was doing way too many drugs and fucking it just destroyed his brain, and it was just a nightmare to be around. And I'd imagine he's still fucking it.
I mean, you can't go fucking a week without another Mustaine headline hitting, the usual kind of Louder Sound or Metal Hammer or one of those kind of sites, and it's oh, listen to what fucking insanity he's coming out with now, and he's like, oh yeah, and it's always him as the main character, as in oh, without me, they wouldn't have done that, and this guy is still playing my music 40 years later, and oh well, I'd be willing to play with this guy, and I'll reach out to him. And people are probably like, no, thank you.
It's like if I was Kirk Hammett, I'd fucking stab him. Because, like, it's like the shit he's given Kirk Hammett over the years. And Kirk Hammett has never said anything back in retaliation.
Never.
So I suppose he knows too.
Yeah, take the high road
with it. And like, I mean, in fairness, my attitude is I think Metallica were better. They obviously were, but if Mustaine was in them, they would have
imploded.
They would not have reached the heights of the Black Album or anything like that. There's not a fucking chance in hell. Kirk Hammett, he's probably one of my favourite guitar players.
Yeah, he's such a chill dude.
But like with Slayer, it was like they're all so nice. That's it. They must have been like me, because they would not have survived, like I was saying. But as well, I've never seen anyone slag off Slayer in an interview at all, or Kerry King. And like, I mean, you look at Kerry King, he's really, really funny off the stage. Jeff Hanneman seemed like a really nice guy as well.
Yeah, again, he just seemed like a chill surfer dude almost, kind of a thing, in his attitude, being laid back,
Dave Lombardo, everyone seems to love Dave Lombardo. Well, he's in every band at the moment, isn't he?
That's it. And say, like, Gary Holt as well.
Gary Holt just seems like a
nice guy that likes cat memes and stuff,
But Tom Araya is like, I mean, that's when you see him singing and like he's so imposing on stage, and there's that kind of like
that power, exactly, and the figure that he cuts as well. You know, he's got the long wild hair, and in his later years, then the wilder beard, and it's just like whoa, fucking screaming. Then he comes off stage and he's just like,
he's a goofball.
Yeah, he's just all smiley and happy. Yeah, he seems like a fun uncle. Kind of a thing,
but they're all in interviews. They all seem to be like brutally honest about stuff, but not nastily honest, where they'd be like shitting on people, like, you know, we're trying to serve. But like when they're like, there was a Little Punk people. And I remember with Tom Araya, and he was like, he said something about had the apocalypse, and he was saying, no, look, things are getting really, you need to look after your mum and dad, you know. And it was just, he seemed to be very family oriented.
Yeah, that's it.
But they, you know, it's, I don't know, they're grounded, I suppose, was the thing for
that's it. And they didn't have any rock star notions either as well. They were never sort of like, you know, idolizing the life on the road or anything like that. I was like, it's kind of shit, I'm away from my family, I'd like to be there for the birth of my son, kind of a thing, you know.
Well, I think Anthrax always remind me of that as well. Like Anthrax, I think, especially if you listen to the Scott Eanes book, and he talks about Slayer as well, because at the early days.
Explain it's an audiobook, because
it's an audiobook.
Makes it sound insane. I was listening to a book.
And it's like, he's got two of them, but this was the first one. And it's like just about his career and stuff. But he talks about the early days with Slayer and Metallica. And he's saying like Slayer, obviously, they still, well, I'd imagine they still get grief for it, because they were like, oh, we don't fucking wear makeup or anything like that. And what was it? There was really funny that Kerry King said about, in the early days, they were like, oh, well, why are you playing this type of music? And it was like, well, there's a bunch of kind of like men dressed as women and wearing makeup in kind of like, you know, in LA, but we're just men and we play like men or something. You know, it's really fucking kind of...
Yeah, kind of sneakily dismissive.
Corny, you know, but it was like something you fucking expect Dirty Harry to say or something like that. But it was just, you know, they seemed to have that kind of thing going on with them, where they were very quick-witted and funny about it. But I was going to say that they were like wearing eyeliner at the start to look evil. And like,
then I was like, no, it's too glam.
Yeah. Scott Ian was kind of like about we always take the piss out of him, saying we were like fucking a hair metal band when you started. Which they weren't. You listen to their music, and like Slayer's music, it started off, it just kind of improved over time, but it was fucking brutally heavy when it started off as well. But Scott Ian's audiobook is fantastic. I'd highly recommend it to anyone. But he talks about them as that they were really, really nice. That they were, I think, not that they lost contact with Metallica, but they did an awful lot for Metallica when Metallica started out. You kind of get the impression that Metallica never really
returned the favour.
With them, whereas like them and Slayer, Anthrax and Slayer, because remember there was the whole it was like not the Monsters of Rock, but it was Anthrax, Slayer, and they brought Alice in Chains out. I think Megadeth might have been on tour.
I can't remember the name of it.
But it was basically the big four without Metallica, where they used to do that, and they like really, because like at the time, like a band like Alice in Chains, it was before grunge kind of hit, and Alice in Chains, they always consider themselves a metal band. I'd consider them a metal band. But they were just a weird metal band.
They were weird, They had a lot of mellower stuff, I suppose. That probably threw a lot of people off as well, you know. But still heavy as fuck. Yeah,
but Scott Ian was saying about like when they brought him out, and I think it was like Slayer wanted to bring him out, and it was, they got pelted with bottles every night, opening up for it, but they stood there and took it, and they got like a lot of respect from people. And then by the end of the fucking tour, people like they were
They're
massive.
showing up to see him, yeah.
I think that's what they were laughing about. They were saying kind of like at the end of the tour they were bigger than everyone else.
I know, yeah. It was like Alice in Chains bringing everybody else out, yeah.
With it. But Slayer's legacy, what would you think that is?
There's every second thrash band was all they want to do is they want to be Slayer. They want to be the next Slayer. You know, they want to be able to play the brutal, heavy, fast riffs.
And it's so hard to do.
I know, that's it. And even some of them that sound so simple, it's just they're slightly off, or they're, you know, the rhythm is just slightly weird and all the rest. But it's just they are very melodic riffs, even though they sound evil and sinister and all the rest. But it's the shredding is just what gets me. It suits Slayer's style of music, but as listening to it, you're kind of like, how does one transcribe this? I don't understand. It's just mental.
I fucking remember. I think it was a Guitar Hero 3 or one had Rain and Blood on it. I don't think I ever completed like the actual with it, like with Rain and Blood. Or if you did, it was just scraping through, like, you know.
It seems like it's just like it would be a button masher kind of thing. But there's, you know, obviously there's highly technical skill involved, but it just sound like he's just absolutely wailing up and down the guitar neck with absolutely no sort of
it's fucking
planner.
Like, there's a fucking YouTuber, Bradley Hall, who I think is just a fucking idiot. But he's like he was going on a while ago, but remember he was rewriting the solos on Lux of Turn and all that, basically saying Kirk Hammett was a terror and he was better than Kirk Hammett, and this is what they should have played.
Yeah, I should be playing the solos nearly, or my solos will be better. It's like, really?
It's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where's your fucking multi-million selling albums and stuff?
Yeah, there's your 40-year fame.
But he was saying about Slayer, saying, Slayer, they're just like squiggly kind of like solos. The solos aren't like proper and stuff like that. I tell you, try and play him.
Fuck that, yeah.
There's like the minds of those men that they could sit, you know what I mean? And put that together. And play it every fucking night.
Yeah. And walk around stage looking like it was effortless as well. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if I was to sit down and try and play that 3 weeks later, I'd still be like, I haven't got it at like 50% of the speed or anything like that.
Yeah,
so.
it's fucking insane. Like, and it's not just like that they were just like randomly fucking hitting notes or stuff like that. Yeah. It's people go on over like Van Halen with the virtuosity and stuff like that. I think Kerry King and Jeff Hanneman are kind of up there with that level of virtuosity, but because it's so fast.
Yeah, people are just like, it's just a bunch of noise.
Yeah, because you're not going to get that. Like, even I think the closest band that I've ever heard to Slayer in a modern kind of band, they're not even a modern band now, is Lamb of God. I think they had I remember hearing them for the first time and feeling the same sense of kind of dread and evil from them. But you listen to it, they don't have that speed, the same speed as Kerry King or Jeff Hanneman, especially with the solos and stuff. And they're fucking like
super technical as well,
like you have I think technical black metal or death metal, you have people that do similar things, but it's you know, it's not palatable, whereas Slayer stuff
it hangs together well. Yeah.
Of course, after Rain and Blood, I think they slowed down a lot. Like South of Heaven
they took a slightly different direction. I think that at the time they were kind of like, well, we've just come out with the fastest record possible. We can't exactly go faster. What direction can you take? We're going to have to go slower. Yeah,
I think Tom Araya as well was kind of like doing more songwriting as well. He was kind of left in to do it, and like South of Heaven and Seasons in the Abyss definitely have slower kind of stuff. Well, it would be hard to have slower songs than fucking on Rain and Blood. Divine Intervention, I think, kind of kicks it back up like gang, and then the rest of them, they're just they're Slayer albums, but they're not I don't think anything else has the kind of the same breakneck speed and complexity. But I think Slayer's, for me, I think Slayer's legacy is definitely in death metal, more so than anything. It wasn't in heavy metal. I can't think of heavy metal bands that kind of like other than Lamb of God, but like Lamb of God, I don't know, Lamb of God just ended up there was a lot of people, well, not a lot of people left Lamb of God, and they were saying that they left because there were certain members of the band that just wanted to keep making Lamb of God albums and didn't want to kind of challenge themselves or do it kind of differently. And I think you can hear that with them, like a Lamb of God song just sounds like Lamb of God, which there's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
They want to, that's what they want to do. They're still good songs. It's not...
Exactly. Yeah. But I think like Slayer, they're one of these bands that, like, if you want to sort of conjure up an image in your mind of a person who would be into a certain band, if you say Slayer, instantly everyone kind of goes, oh yeah, you can picture that guy with the back patch on or with the t-shirt on, or equally as well, you see kids going around on like fucking BMXs and stuff like that are 6 years old and they're wearing Slayer t-shirts, even now, sort of 40
you
odd
would
years on.
get Slayer t-shirts and likes of Tesco's and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not Tesco, but you know, there's...
Yeah, it's that level of popularity, I suppose, that kids, you know, nowadays even are still coming up and going, yeah, Slayer, kind of thing, which... You know, you don't get an awful lot of kids, even though, say, the likes of Black Sabbath or something like that would be as, you know, influential. You don't tend to see kids, you know, skateboarding around in their Black Sabbath t-shirts.
Well, it's the thing with Slayer as well, where I think they get kind of, well, it was at the time people were saying, oh, they just keep like doing the same songs and stuff. They did like collaborations on, they definitely did collaboration on Spawn anyway. I'm fairly sure that they did it on with Ice-T on fucking whatchamacallit, the Judgment Night soundtrack, and they would have done a lot of other things. But I suppose what would have brought them to a different audience would have been, I think they were on the Tony Hawk soundtrack as well. Right. Jackass had them in the Jackass soundtrack as well, so you had like a skater kind of things, because I remember there seemed to be a resurgence in Slayer after Jackass, because you had all that skateboard community and all those kind of people got into it then all of a sudden, which was because I think Slayer were pretty much an underground for a long time. You had to be into metal to be into Slayer. It's not like nowadays where you have fucking crossover bands like Death Haven and so, you know, where you're not going to have someone listen to Miley Cyrus and then listen to Slayer in the same breath. Like, not that they probably do that with Death Haven either.
But yes, no, I get where you're coming from with that. Right, But yes, excellent album.
Yeah, it is an amazing album. I think, so if you want to scare yourself and you're after getting sick of playing the Monster Masher thriller, Slayer, Rain and Blood, it's definitely...
And it would be the perfect album to play as you're walking around trick-or-treating for Halloween as well.
Maybe, you know, it depends on the neighbourhood you're going to. It won't be going up to like some kind of like, you know, fucking...
Infamous Butcher!
Yeah, it's like a Holocaust survivor, kind of like Auschwitz. You're like, what?
Indeed, yes. But yes, spooky Slayer.
Yeah, so yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the music episode. Go over and give us a like and subscribe or do something, I don't know. But
or just carve Slayer into your arms.
Yeah, you've got no into your forehead. But use a mirror when you're doing it.
So it'll go backwards.
But yes, until next time.
Fucking Slayer!
Yeah, we should have done the movie Slayer. Hawk the Slayer. Oh, maybe next time.